welcome to Cannesversations at CES 2026. My name is Mike Richter with Unplugged Collective, and we're having cam-worthy conversations everywhere the industry gathers. I'm here today with Geoff Stupay at Human. How are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Fantastic. How's CES been for you?
It's been busy as usual, but it's fun to meet with partners and, have an opportunity to start the year right with great conversations and, fun things to do.
How many more days you got?
I'm actually going to head out after this. This is my last thing, so I'm ending my trip with you, man. You should feel special.
Saving the best for last, right?
Exactly.
I love it. Can you tell those at home a little bit about yourself and Human?
Absolutely. So I work as the head of product at Human, and Human is really focused on bot mitigation and fraud protection across the media landscape as well as enterprise landscape, and have a number of different products that also provide AI visibility and other protections. So we're kind of all over the place in the security space.
I love that. And I heard a little story about how you became part of Human, right?
Yeah, definitely. I started a company that was an anti-malvertising company along with some other folks, and that was called Clean. And then I was lucky to be acquired by Human, and now I'm here today.
If you had to boil everything down to, I don't know, less than 15 seconds, why is it most important to care about these types of services?
Because trust in this ecosystem is basically the most important currency that you can have.
Somebody's done some media trading. I love that. It works. Ready to jump into some questions?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So first and foremost, should brands be concerned about their ads running adjacent to AI-generated content?
I think that it's really no different than any of the content today. They should always be concerned about what content they're running adjacent to. AI is just another kind of, you could say, improvement in some areas, or just a new way that this content is being generated. So you need to, I would say, just continue to be cognizant of the content that you're running against.
That makes sense. Have you ran into a lot of brands that forget that lesson?
I think for the most part, a lot of the folks that are working with Human are concerned about it, because they obviously wouldn't be working with us in the first place if they weren't.
That makes sense. So not to plug it, but say it's a fire drill. On to the next one. Are brands prepared for a world where consumers question everything they see?
I think that most brands are probably not prepared for that. I would say, like, in terms of what would you say they need to be they're questioning? Like, in terms of everything they see, is this from like a consuming experience, a buying experience, or just anything?
Look, nobody trusts anything anymore, right? Things are sounding too good to be true. There's scammers everywhere. There's all the things, right? And a lot of it's because of the AI slop nowadays too. So
I think it goes back to the original question, which is like the most important currency of trust. And so that's the only way to really get around this. And that's really what we focus on.
It's one of those key factors of human relationships is trust.
Exactly.
Right. So we got to learn how to trust everybody when you don't talk to a person in real life.
I agree.
Right. On to AI agents. You know a thing or two about them?
We know a little bit about AI agents here at Human. We have a tool set, a number of different products, but our flagship is something that we call Agentic Trust. It allows both enterprises and brands to basically gain a couple of different things. First is the visibility into the agentic activity that's occurring on their sites. And really that's like the core base that we're hearing from many of the brands that we're talking to, of just like, they want to know what's happening to begin with in this like brave new world that we're entering with all kinds of agentic stuff. And then the second is really control or governance, and basically the ability to act on what agents should or shouldn't or can or can't do on a given application. And so
that makes sense.
That's really where we're focused.
Well, with agents, they're like experiencing scale, interacting with digital experiences, right? It's growing like crazy. There's a new agent touching a site every how many seconds nowadays?
I can't say like what we're seeing in Human from like a data perspective is like what we've seen in terms of growth from, let's just say, like the second quarter of last year to basically the end of the year was like very exponential growth. It's still a small percentage of overall traffic, but I would say that the growth in general of the agentic activity has been very exponential, and we see that continuing into 2026. So it's started to come, and it's coming quickly.
Well, it sounds like you know a lot about it, but how much do you think the general public knows and understands about that behavior? And where do you think we're actually fooling ourselves?
I think that most folks across the industry have an idea of the different activities that might be happening, but they don't understand the way that it's impacting their given environment. So even if you talk between like a publisher or a brand, they have they're both concerned about AI and agentic activity on their sites, but they have very different concerns. Like a publisher might be concerned about the scraping of their actual content and who's doing that scraping and what's it being used for and how is it being scraped, versus a brand or an e-commerce store might care more about like the agentic activity of like an agent trying to go and check out. So it really all boils down to visibility, but it also really depends on the persona. But I would say as we speak with these different personas, most people are very much at the beginning of their like understanding of what's going on, and they're coming to Human to be like, hey, just tell me more about what's going on. I'm even less concerned about like taking action on it versus just learning more about what is going on.
I love that. You said something about checking out, right? And I'm thinking about commerce and e-com on sites. And I think back to how when e-commerce was really growing and we would shop online as a human, you might not be sure who you're shopping from. And there might be, we as consumers wouldn't know who's on the other end of that. But it feels like the tables have flipped a little bit now. And brands don't know who's on the other end of the shopping.
That's a very accurate statement, and it goes back to kind of the core of trust. There are obviously ways that brands can understand this, and as like the things that we've seen so far are kind of very controlled interactions where it's like the LLM or somebody like a ChatGPT is working directly with a brand, and they have, or like something like a Stripe, and they have a set protocol, if you will, or an experiment. But I think as we get more brands involved, more connections, it becomes a core problem of how do you certify this user, how do you certify this interaction, and that's something that we're definitely focused on.
And how also not to block them from buying things, right?
Like basically give up money where it shouldn't. Or, but it can go the inverse too. Like if you let it go through and then it becomes a chargeback and then it becomes something else, it's it's a double-edged sword.
How would you happen to know on average how much money brands are leaving on the table nowadays?
I would say that we probably don't have like a statistic off the top of my head.
Would you say it's pretty significant relative to the brand size they are?
I would say that the scraping of the content is probably more significant than the transactions that are occurring. From what the data that we're seeing right now, transactions are kind of very early days of having like, I think a lot of people probably, here's a question. Have you done it?
Use agents to shop?
Yeah.
And I'm an early adopter on a lot of things. I can't say I've done that yet.
Yeah, so I think like most people at CES would say the same thing, and I would categorize most people here as probably early adopters of these things. And I don't think if we went around and asked a lot of people like how many people are letting ChatGPT check out for me. Now, maybe if we do that next CES, it might be different, but I think that's, to me, that's indicative of where we're at, and our data kind of supports that. So I think it's a problem that will exist, but it's not something that's like, hey, this brand, because you don't have like agentic shopping set up right now in January of 2026, like you're leaving millions on the table.
No, that makes sense, but it's know the foundation before the, have the foundation built before the wave comes in.
No, 100%.
Right? If you don't have it built, then you're going to get washed away. You don't want that to happen. Would you say it has, as we're understanding agents in this e-commerce ecosystem, how is it relating to that of the retail media network ecosystem?
I think like we have a lot of brands who have retail media networks, and I would say that in terms of the agentic visibility and agentic governance, those are the folks that probably have the most use cases across all of the different AI interactions, because those are folks that have both scraping that's occurring, because there's the LLMs that are trying to scrape their catalogs and expose that information, and basically they are in a situation where they have to understand how they want to basically allow or not allow those interactions. But then they also are going to be subjected to the shopping experience as well through the agentic shopping. So I think that like in terms of what persona would be most affected by most of these interactions, probably retail media.
Well, on that topic, retail media measurement's kind of a mess too, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. That's not an understatement. But it is kind of an oversimplification to an extent too. Yeah.
I think it kind of depends from partner to partner. But what we have definitely seen is like really with a retail media network, what you're doing is kind of creating your own internal ecosystem, and you obviously want to represent, again, trust in that ecosystem. So whereas if you're playing in the open programmatic space or you're buying on social or something else, you kind of have those mechanisms of trust and measurement that are already built in oftentimes by third parties like human or competitors and other people. But when you're running and really starting some retail media networks, which end up being as large or often larger than many of these open programmatic interactions, it's more on you to make sure that measurements working, make sure that the clicks that are coming through and the money that people are spending on your platform is actually turning out positive ROI for them. And so part of that, comes into things like click fraud and other measurements. So it's something that human has been focused on with a number of our different clients.
Do you think there's some distinct steps that can help us standardize this and this fragmentation and help us maximize the ROI for advertisers, especially that within retail media networks?
I think really paying attention again to the metrics and being able to expose that to your partners. So basically treating it again similar to how you would treat a programmatic interaction, and making sure that the ecosystem that you're creating inside of your network is as trusted, or honestly more trusted, because you have the opportunity for it to be more trusted than kind of like a general open programmatic interaction.
I love that. I feel like I've learned something on that. But we love AI, but we got some other fun things. You a sports guy?
A little bit. I'm an F1 guy.
Okay. Well, let's ask a quick question about sports.
Okay.
How do you think we can mix non-disruptive ad formats in live sports to maximize revenue without annoying latency-sensitive fans?
One thing where I think that we can look to and see how they're doing it right now, and probably where that's a really complicated problem to solve, is in-game. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of those folks are focused on, and we have clients who are focused on in-game, because basically that's a scenario where they want to monetize inside the game. So when I talk about in-game in this scenario, it's like, hey, you have we have a racing game.
Yeah, let's use that one.
Yeah. And there's a banner within there. Well, how do you place that inside of the PlayStation game that you're doing right now in the least disruptive manner? And I think that maybe looking at some of the tips and tricks that those folks are doing might be something we could apply outside. But this is definitely more of a stumper. I don't know.
I think I like the angle you went with that, because if we can solve how to create ads in an in-game experience without disrupting the experience, that is the pinnacle of it all.
Yeah.
Because live sports fans, yes, you can upset them, but they'll still come back.
Exactly.
Gamers, you upset gamers, they're done with you.
Yeah. They'll roast you on the internet.
Oh, they will roast you. They'll get the brand out of my game. Stop that BS, right? So totally get that. I'm a gamer, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a hardcore gamer or any sports gamer. I love a good RPG here and there, and I don't want my story interrupted. So I totally get that. So you're the first person to take that angle. So I don't think you really got stumped. I think you nailed that one.
Perfect.
But I do have a few other ones to hit you with. I know you can't look here. You got. This is all about think fast.
I'm ready.
Actually, think fast, not hard. You ready for that?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, authentic in-game experience or personalized live sports betting. Which one do you prefer?
Probably authentic in-game experience. Not a big sports
listen,
better.
You just stuck on the gaming.
Yeah.
I had a feeling that's what you were going to choose. Voice agents like Alexa or Siri, or vehicle operating systems like Android Auto.
I don't use either, honestly, so I'd probably go with maybe Siri. Siri doesn't work that great. I'm hoping Apple make some improvements there.
If there's anybody from Apple watching this,
I didn't say that.
Don't be mad at us. Just take it as constructive feedback. Streaming ads, non-disruptive overlays, or shoppable pause ads.
Probably non-disruptive overlays.
Interesting. You might be the first person this week that I've asked that question to that shows that. I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad by any means.
I'm an ad guy. I'm just
you are an ad guy.
Trying to
listen. That
was what I feel like would be a little more ad driven versus action driven, shopping driven.
Well, look, I think that just means you're a person who likes to stand out and take charge of hard things.
There you go.
There's a silver lining in everything. Do you like to predict things?
I guess we're gonna do it.
We are. What's your one prediction for 2026?
I would say scale in AI based on what I was talking about earlier and growth. I think there's still a lot of understanding that has to happen, but one thing that we can count on is that the scale will continue to grow.
And then which event do you find most valuable and why?
Cannes is probably the most fun, but I think that Possible is probably one of the more, or this one is probably the most valuable in terms of meeting people that help to make decisions and move things along.
And speaking of this one, since we're in Vegas, very last question, what is your Vegas guilty pleasure?
I would actually say Delilah's. Delilah's is a great restaurant.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Go check out Delilah's.
Plug, you know,
Hey.
I don't get any kickbacks, but maybe I should.
Give him some free dessert.
Yeah,
what's your favorite dish there?
Man, there's a bunch. You really can't go wrong.
Well, I guess I'm going to have dinner there tonight. But before we go there, do you like to place some bets?
Sure.
Sure? Great. Well, we're going to roll a little dice, and you might get some money. Courtesy of Zephyr, who has been helping take care of our amazing series this week. So, here is your dice. And take a roll right there. Well,
Wow.
that means you get a double roll.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you're going to get 2 prizes.
I couldn't tell if that was a good or bad thing. It sounds like it's good.
$50.
All right, $50.
Oh,
Let's go.
And then we got to roll one more time. $10.
All right.
There we go.
Let's go.
Thank you, Zephyr, for taking care and giving him some fun chips to play. Maybe you can get some penny slots on the way out before you go. But guys, we're all out of questions. We're never out of personality. This has been Cannesversations. Thanks again, Geoff, for joining us from Human, and we'll have a great day soon. See ya.